Hi guys, welcome everybody. Sorry about that. I was doing one before and then I shut off. But anyways, welcome everybody. My name is Abiola Makonjola and you're welcome to Thrive with God, where we have conversations, where we build believers who choose to thrive in their God-given identity. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Today I wanted to do a really quick video and I wanted to talk about the importance of healing. And this is something that became very, very, very clear to me. And I knew that I had to bring it to you. I knew that I had to share. I believe it was last year. I was listening to a video. I was actually looking to volunteer with a non-for-profit organization over here. Just looking to do some counseling work with them. And so one of the requirements in order for me to be accepted into the program was for me to do this training video. There was like a bunch of things that he had to do, and one of it was to watch this video. And the video basically, was talking about, it was this guy, I don't remember the guy's name, but it was basically this guy talking about, he was giving like a TEDx talk. And it was just basically talking about feelings and how, you're able to help people overturn their feelings, or you're able to catch people in that place of what they're feeling and then provide that space for them and be empathetic. And then that's when you're actually able to start to turn them or start to just transform them in a sense. And I remember just listening to it. And in that moment, when he spoke about feelings, I remember just saying to myself, oh, feelings, here we go again, feelings. And then Holy Spirit just cautioned me in that moment. And Holy Spirit was like, well, the feelings are valid. And that's how we're able to get to the root of whatever it is that is making them identify with those feelings. And we're able to change and transform those feelings. And in that moment, it became very clear to me. And I was like, oh, okay, I see. And ever since then, for me, I've been trying to, I guess I would say, understand better what it means, like the role of feelings in the grand scheme of things. Like, what is the role of feelings? How does it play out? How does it allow us connect to the Spirit of God even more in order for us to start to heal? So that's something that I've been asking. And also just understanding the soul. People talk about like the soul is the mind, the body, the will. Sorry, the soul is the mind, like that's your emotions, that's your will, like that's really the core of who you are. And we all had the Spirit of God. We're all like, from the beginning of time, that was something that we had. And then the soul is, part of God as well. I believe like it's the breath and the life that God put inside of us. And then our body is literally what allows us to exist on earth. And that's why you find like when people die or when people pass, like their bodies become lifeless, but then that soul remains on forever. Like the soul is yanked away from the body and then the body is just lifeless. So the body is really what allows us to exist on earth. And once that body, like once you drop dead, the soul gets yanked away from us and then, you're gone. So for me, it's just been trying to explain or trying to understand what the soul meant, and just understanding like when people talk about the healing of the soul, like what does that mean? Like what exactly is the meaning of that? Because you find that that's where your feelings are. Your feelings lie in that part of you. The feelings, it harbors the feelings, it harbors your will, it harbors your emotions. Like it's just a combination of so many things that, again, for me, it's just, okay, how does this work? Like, how do we heal the soul? How do we heal the soul? How do we heal the soul? And recently, I would say as far back as about a month ago, I did start therapy myself. And one of the things that I experienced in my journey was that I was dealing with the fear of abandonment. And I'm sorry if you hear noise in the background. I have my child at home. And Kenji, can you please keep it down? Thank you. So I one of the things that I started recently was, therapy. And um I was just dealing with some things. I had some questions that I had not been able to put a finger on for the longest time. And it kept on coming on. Like I would get reminded, I would find myself in situations, or I'd get reminded of the situations that I had been dealing with. Kenji, can you please reduce your voice? I would find myself in situations that I had been dealing with, and it would sort of like trigger those emotions to come back. And I would find myself in that space asking the same question: why did I do this? 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 Not necessarily being able to like have a proper answer or being able to figure it out. So the last time I experienced this, which was in December, I was like, okay, I have to do something about it. I cannot continue to live in this fear, because literally it would be like anxiety, and it would just like take a chokehold of me. So then I started therapy, and one of the things that came up in that process was the fear of abandonment. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, the fear of abandonment came. I'm not going to go into what all of that means, but it was a breakthrough for me. However, it just allowed me to understand what it really means when people talk about, or when we talk about the healing of the soul. Because in my soul I was harboring that fear of abandonment, and that was making me make decisions that was not in alignment with who God designed me to be, or who God designed my soul. Because my soul is really a replica of God. Yes, I do host the spirit of God inside of me. However, when my soul is in alignment with God's design, when my soul is at its, would I say, at its when the soul is at the point of, or like in formation, and there's no like how would I explain it? It's like when you speak in tongues, there's a way that you feel like you feel so connected to your spirit that you can hear God clearly, right? So when the soul is in that state, then you're able to hear God correctly. You're able to hear God, like you feel so close to God. But you're like the spirit just speaks to your soul, and the desires and the will and the emotion and everything. And that's why the Bible talks about being in prayer consistently, continuously. Do not cease to pray, because your soul, it renews your soul, it renews your mind, it allows you to be close to the Spirit of God, right? But then what the fear of abandonment was doing to me was, it was taking away from that will and that emotion. It was taking away from who my original design. It was taking away from the alignment that God has created me. It was taking away from that alignment. It was taking away from that original design, that even when I would think thoughts, or even when I would want to do something that I feel like, oh, this is achievable, or this is, right up my alley, or this is even, the will of God for me, I will do something counterproductive to what it is that I want to do, because again, that fear of abandonment is sitting somewhere in my soul, and it's causing me to start to think frantically. It's causing me to be anxious, and then I make decisions out of that feeling of anxiety, out of that feeling of fear, and then it leads to things that it's not supposed to lead to, basically taking me away from the will of God, taking me away out of alignment with the will of God over my life, taking me um out of the desire of God over my life. And I hope that I'm making sense. So when we talk about a healing of the soul, it means to be able to go in and to be able to understand, or to be able to explore what fragments of the soul have been broken, that has caused us to be where we are. What fragments of our will, of our emotions have been broken, that has taken us away from the original design of God? What fragments of our soul have been broken, that has caused us to not align with the system of good that God created us in? Right? I don't know if I'm making sense, and I don't know if you're understanding this, but the soul is like, healing the soul allows us to be in, allows us to be even closer to being one with God. It allows us to be closer to the Spirit of God. It allows us to hear the Spirit of God quickly, swiftly. It allows us to be more, it brings the consciousness, that awareness, it brings us into that space of awareness and consciousness, where we're not dealing with fear, we're not dealing with anxiety. And even when we find ourselves in a situation where our nervous system gets triggered by certain situations because of a response that we have, or because of a situation that we found ourselves in, we're able to process that situation for what it is, and we're able to respond differently. But then if we don't have those tools, if we don't have the language, or if we don't even have the awareness of what it is that's happening inside of us, chances are that we're going to just continue to respond to that situation the same way over and over and over and over and over again. And that's why people, go to therapy. And that's why, when you sit with a therapist or you sit with a counselor, one of the things that they will talk to you about is, okay, so tell me more about that. Oh, I'm feeling this way. Okay, tell me more about that feeling. Where did that feeling come from? Where did that come from? What was that like? Blah, 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 blah. And they want to go into your past, and they want to go into your childhood, and they want to go into that journey that created that feeling. And then when you uncover it, you're like, this is what's been causing me to feel this way. I'm not supposed to be feeling this way because my soul, my body, like I wasn't designed to feel this way. And this is a situation that has been causing me to feel this way. And then when you have that breakthrough, it's almost like I don't have to deal with that anymore. It's not my baggage. It's not my stuff. It's almost like something somebody just takes like this. Imagine carrying a bag full of heavy rocks. I know that's one of the would I say not approaches, but like the what's the word? You know when the word is in your head, but then you can't like say it. But I know what I want to say, but I don't have the language for it or the word for it. It's one of the techniques. Thank you, Holy Spirit. It's one of the techniques that that it's being used. I watch a lot of shows. I like watching reality TV shows. Reality TV shows, even though it's not reality, but you know what I mean. And okay, I'm coming. But I watch reality TV shows once to do with marriage, therapy and stuff like that. I'm into stuff like that. And one of the techniques that therapists would use, especially like in marriage or in relationships or whatever the case is like they will tell you to hold a bag full of rocks, and then they will make you carry that bag and walk with that bag. And then at the end of that exercise, they'll ask you, how heavy was that? And you'll be like, man, that was so heavy. And it's like, yeah, that's what's happening to you because you're carrying so much weight on you, and like carrying all these guilt and all this shame and all this discomfort that is causing you not to even move in life because you're just seeing life from the lens of the shame. You're seeing life from the lens of the discomfort. You're seeing life from the lens of the pain and the anxiety, and that's how you're viewing life. So all your decision, everything, your decision making process, your decisions, everything that you do, your will, your emotions, your desire comes from the lens of that discomfort. So you can't necessarily move further in life. But then the moment you take that off, it's almost like a huge weight has been lifted off your shoulder. And it's like you can all of a sudden now think, you can all of a sudden breathe, you can all of a sudden just start desiring something new. You can all of a sudden give room to the Holy Spirit to put his desires inside of you. You can all of a sudden start having conversations with God, and you can all of a sudden just start manifesting the will of God in your life and start seeing things from a different lens and start seeing life with from a different perspective and start seeing life with more, what I call it, brightness, and with more desire, with more will. And that's just because you are healing your soul. And even when we look at the book of Matthew, God said, or Jesus said, when he came to the world, I came to heal the sick. And the sick doesn't necessarily mean people who are physically deformed or who cannot move. Yes, he healed those people, but then he also healed people who had broken souls, whose souls were broken, whose fragments, whose souls were broken, who were not whole, who had really like issues within themselves that they had to heal from. And you find that when you do that healing from inside, it makes such a huge difference. It creates like you become a different person, or not even a different person, but you become who God originally designed you to be. You become who God originally designed you to be in his image. You begin to operate from his image, from a place of being in his image and being in his likeness. So you're not operating from that place of fear. You're not operating from that place of anxiety, but now you're operating from the place of being in his image, being created in his image and in his likeness. Now you are in a place where you are identifying with the will of God for your life, and you are working towards bringing that will, manifesting that will here on earth as he has designed you to be. So it's so important to heal the soul. It's so important to look within. And I know sometimes it's not the easiest thing to do, but relationships are one of the ways that we can heal our soul. If you're in a relationship with your significant other and they're saying something or they're complaining about something, sometimes it's not the you. And that's something that I'm guilty of as well, where you're like, oh, you said this, you said that, you said this, you said that, you said this, you said that. And one of the things that I've learned is that relationships are a mirror, that when I'm pointing at you, right? There's three fingers pointing at me, right back at me. So for me, it's like I have to check myself first. If I'm talking about an inadequacy, if I'm complaining about something, I have to check myself first and ask myself, like, what about that situation makes me feel off? What about that situation makes me feel uncomfortable? Is it me, or is it genuinely something that I need from the other person? So instead of going sometimes, yes, it's your partner, and your partner needs to adjust to who you are and who you know yourself to be. Your partner needs to adjust to your needs and, giving and all that stuff. That's totally acceptable. However, sometimes it's also, you also have to ask yourself, what about that situation is making me feel uncomfortable? Like, why am I not, like, what is causing that discomfort? What is causing that pain? Like, what about that situation made me feel that shame? What about that situation made me just feel off? You have to ask yourself that question. Relationships with your significant other, relationships with your children. I can't tell you how many, like, the things that my children have done that has made me question myself, that has made me question my mentality, especially, like, in their younger years, when they're way more confident before they grow older. And of course, like, they start to see the world from a different perspective. But like, we know that toddlers, we know that children, at least up until, they're very honest. Let's just put it that way. Children are very honest. And sometimes they will say stuff and you'll be like, ouch, ouch, ouch. And you're going to have to sit with that, and you're going to have to question, like, okay, what about that situation made me say ouch? What about that situation? Or why do I see that situation this way? If my child has come up with this perspective, why does he have to go my own way? Why can't I entertain a different perspective? So, like, relationships with your significant other, relationships with your spouse, relationships with your children, relationships even with parents. I know, like, we're in an era where, people were saying we parent our children, or sorry, we parent our own parents and stuff like that, which is right. However, there's also situations where we can learn from that relationship. We can learn from the things that they have done, and we can choose to do different. We can choose to do better. We can choose to do otherwise. We don't have to follow directly. Like, we don't have to follow exactly in their footsteps. And that requires also healing from whatever it is that they've done to us, or healing from whatever lessons that they've handed to us, knowing that those are not the type of lessons that we want to hand to our own children or to our own generation. So knowing that we want to do things differently, that's an opportunity for us to start to ask those questions. And the beautiful thing is that the Holy Spirit will help you. Because when I talk about this fear of abandonment, it wasn't discovered while I was even in the session. Granted, I went into the session and I had the conversation with the lady, with my therapist, and we're going back and forth, we're talking and stuff like that. And she was asking me questions and then ended up giving me an assignment. We didn't uncover that fear of abandonment in the session. It was after the session had ended, probably hours later, and I was still thinking of the session, thinking of the assignments, and just asking and just asking and just pondering. And the Holy Spirit revealed it to me. It said fear of abandonment, and I was like, this is it. This is what's caused me to make these decisions in the way that I've made them. This is what's caused me to jeopardize certain relationships. This is what's caused me to do this and to do that. This is what's caused me to act this way and act in that way, and blah 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 blah. I'm like, this is it. So the Holy Spirit is our helper. The Holy Spirit is our helper. He allows us to help. Like, that's where the beginning, that's where that healing journey, that's where it starts, that's where it begins. So relationships with your spouse, relationship with your children, with your parents, the Holy Spirit, just relationships, even in the workplace, relationships all around. So you want to evaluate your relationships, and you want to begin to take inventory. Like, what about that situation made me feel off? What about this person makes me feel off? Like, what about this situation makes me feel like I need to be in charge, or I need to be in control all the time? What about this situation makes me not want to try something new? Like, what about this situation makes me not want to check this thing out from a different perspective? Like, just asking yourself those questions, because it's when you begin to ask yourself those questions that you begin to uncover those things, and then that's when you can begin to heal your soul. And then that's where your alignment and your identity that was made in the image and likeness of God can really begin to shine. And then that's when you can really begin to do the will of God and then take dominion, which is the mandate that God had given us in the book of Genesis at the beginning of time. I've given you dominion over the seas, of the fishes of the seas, and the birds of the sky. I've given you dominion over the land. Go out and take dominion. That's the mandate that God has given us. And so I just wanted to share that. I just wanted to bring that awareness to somebody who might be watching this. And yeah, let me know what your thoughts are. And make sure you share this video. Make sure you share with a friend, or share. I will definitely be watching this again because I feel like this is an important conversation to have. And I hope to see you next time. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much if you're going to be watching the replay. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you, and have an amazing day in the. I appreciate you. Have an amazing day in the world. I love you. And don't let anybody tell you different, because I do. I do. All right. Bye.